Designing your course for distance delivery can be challenging. It can be even more challenging to design that course with service learning or a project for your students to complete with a community partner. To design a distance course with civic engagement elements, you'll need to consider the following key areas in your design: learning outcomes assessments, community partnership, distance modeling, social presence and cohort development at a distance, and project-based learning. In a distance course, you'll want to pay special attention to the goals you have for your students' learning and the many ways you might assess a student's achievement of those goals. First, imagine what your students should be able to demonstrate when they've finished with your course. For example, your chemistry students might need to be able to analyze water samples and share the results clearly with others. It will be important to consider outcomes in terms of demonstration, what students can do to show their learning. Once you have determined the outcomes, you will have a firm understanding of how to assess those outcomes. For instance, if the goal of your professional writing students is that they write professional copy and incorporate critical feedback, you can assign work where students write, copy, and expose it to others, perhaps community partners, for that feedback. This will lay the groundwork for folding community partnership into the process.
Community partnership. First, consider that community partners will have their own ideas about what students can do to help them. It's a good idea to meet with a community partner, either you or the student, to go over the goals of the class and discuss what the community member really needs from the partnership. Ultimately, whatever a student or group of students produces will belong to the partner and will need to be sustained by that partner. The partner should have some say in what the learners produce. Second, consider multiple methods for your students to demonstrate the skills you are teaching them. In a web design class, for instance, you may want your students to design a website from scratch. But consider the possibilities of a student using her newly found coding skills to instead improve an existing website, to make it more accessible, or she creates a new application that allows a partner to perform inline customer service chatting. Finally, remember that including community partners at a distance can happen in a variety of ways. You can host a desktop video conference over tools like Zoom, Google Hangouts, Skype, or FaceTime, where students and partners meet to discuss projects and goals. You can invite partners to audit the course site and interact with discussion boards, or you can create a social media site where partners and students can connect online. With a little organizational planning and construction, you can even task students with finding their own partners that might be local to where they live.
Because distance learners are not typically held to a recurring meeting or schedule, learners benefit from having assignments, including discussions, spaced out over a few days of class time with clear expectations outlined for what good discussion looks like. Having some advanced warning of expectations can help learners self-motivate and keep track of project goals even though they may not be meeting with you at regular intervals. Planning ahead for project deliverable due dates and times when virtual or teleconference meetings will be held can help learners keep track of evolving expectations. It can be helpful for both you and your students if you construct a loose outline for the civic engagement project work while still leaving room for flexibility with the community partner and for project iteration. You might call this planned spontaneity or voice and choice. A good way to model this is to develop a project management template that includes the stages of project development, important dates where key components of the project should be complete, moments in the schedule that create space for revisions and iteration, and a communication plan outline to help students communicate project outcomes with a team or community partner. It is also a good idea to identify the communication tools, such as social media or conference lines, ahead of time. Then give students time to practice using these tools and perhaps provide students with access to supporting materials and tutorials to help. This can relieve some anxiety for distance learners while also setting the stage for social connection between learners, instructors, and partners.
social presence, and cohort development at a distance. In face to face classrooms or teams, the cohort effect tends to develop around the water cooler or in the hallway when the formality of the course or meeting has loosened and learners can speak more freely with one another. Because online courses don't have water coolers or hallways, or indeed even classrooms, the experience that allows learners and teams to really gel with one another by socializing and interacting must be created and reinforced by the instructor. Instructors can facilitate social presence by setting clear guidelines for interaction in text based discussions, by sharing content and feedback, by connecting in a social media site, or by meeting up for live video or text chat sessions in real time. Creating the digital space that allows a cohort to develop socially can also cross the boundaries of a single course. A social media community or group can also include community partners, students who have taken the class in the past, or students in other classes doing similar work. To create a meaningful digital space for this social development, consider how and when you want the learners to engage with one another. How often should they be communicating? What sorts of things should they discuss? At what points during the project should the community partner be invited into the discussion? What does successful distance communication look like in this discipline? What are your policies around discourse and etiquette?
Project-based learning. Most civic engagement and service learning courses center around project-based learning, which can be adapted for distance delivery. As you develop your course, consider these key factors to create strong project-based course design for civic engagement. First, break down the project cycle into a basic timeline and communicate to students when they should deliver on those pieces. For example, the first part of a project cycle often consists of identifying or analyzing the problem to be solved with the community partner, and the second part usually consists of reviewing, revising, and iterating the potential solutions until one or more are selected to implement. Next, it is a good idea to set target dates for each of these elements by asking students to identify the problem by one date, offer feedback to each other by another date, revise based on that feedback by another date, and then select the solutions to implement by a final date. The goal here is to break the project cycle down into bite-sized morsels so your learners can gnaw away at the whole plate one nibble at a time. And finally, it is helpful to clarify roles early in the project cycle so people know what to expect from one another. This can be done with informal contracts between team members, community partners, or between you and the student. For example, who will be responsible for submitting the final project to a community partner for review? Who is responsible for documenting the feedback and revision notes? Who will be the timekeeper, keeping everyone on task for those deliverables?
We hope that this quick start guide to civic engagement and service learning for distance courses has been useful to you. Please be sure to check out the University College and University of Southern Maine Collaborative Civic Engagement Toolkit for other resources, guides, and templates that can help you develop your civic engagement project course.